Paris needed to win 4-0 to keep fighting in the playoffs, and Washington was looking to get their first win of the year. Despite the expectation that Washington would lose due to the Eternals' skilled GOATS play, the Justice came ready for a fight. On the first map, an opening pick from the Eternal on Giannis gave Paris the initial capture. This opening pick was repeated for the second team fight, and the Justice got held back, almost up to 40% before they pushed back in. The Eternals' Gravitron self-destruct combo failed, and Washington picked off Ben Best. Corey got enough momentum to win the team fight. In Paris' next push, they took the point back despite a double kill from Sansam with a self-destruct. With this last capture, Paris wiped the Justice and took the first round. Stratus opened the second round with a pick onto Ben Best, but the Justice took so much damage that Paris continued to push into them and gain the upper hand. The Justice continued to get split through the chokes on the map, and Paris easily held them up till 70%. When the Justice finally got a good Graviton self-destruct combo, they managed to capture the point. As Paris pushed back in, Giannis got taken down again. On Washington's final attempt to push in, Stratus got picked off by the Eternal, which gave Paris the momentum they needed to push and win the team fight. Paris won 2-0. Guido was substituted in for Stratus, and after a long team fight, the Justice tried to use both their support ultimates to hold the point. It ended up being insufficient as the Eternal pushed in with their own sound barrier to capture point A. The Justice defense managed to push the Eternal to overtime. They almost held Paris at point C. No one managed to stay on the point though, and Paris was victorious. On Washington's attack, they pushed forward and built their ultimates, capturing point A in swift fashion. Although Giannis landed an Earth Shatter on the enemy team, the Eternal support players managed to pick off some Justice players to hold them on the streets. However, in the next push, Sansam engaged with his self-destruct, giving them the momentum they needed to push through point B without much resistance. On the final point, it looked as if the Justice would push through when both Corey and Sansam got opening picks. However, the Eternal's superior positioning meant that it took a lot more ultimates to push through. Nonetheless, Washington prevailed with Guido Strong's Zenyatta play and captured point A with 1:32 in the time bank. On Washington's second round of attack, they picked off one at a time, leaving them with 45 seconds to push. Unfortunately, an early transcendence from Guido to keep his team alive meant that Soan could easily engage with his Graviton Surge after. This took the wind out of the Justice's sails. The map ended in a 3-3 tie. Eternal pushed through point A with a triple DPS, poking at the Justice with Widowmaker shots and Pharah rockets. After Nico sealed the deal with a rocket barrage, they pushed on to point B. After this, the Eternal switched back to GOATS where they overused their ultimates. Through several lost team fights, Paris used to up their ultimates poorly. At the same time, the Justice built their Graviton Surge, and Corey and Giannis' combined damage is enough to keep holding. An amazing stall from Sansam allowed them to hold through the last minute, after which the Eternally finally pushed through the last tick with their Graviton Surge and capped with only 6 seconds remaining. On attack, the Justice constantly tried to rotate into the point from the high ground. Eventually, they pushed through with a good Graviton Surge self-destruct combo. They managed to somehow get 2 ticks on point B with Guido's Transcendence and an Earth Shatter from Giannis. Thanks to a big play from Ado knocking Soan off the point, they captured B with 2 minutes remaining as Paris could not touch the point. On the Eternal's second attack, despite the matchup looking very bad, the Justice continued to push through. Despite having only 2 players remaining, Guido's Coalescence and Sansam's self-destruct wiped out the remaining players of Paris, and they held on to point A. On the Justice's second attack, the rotations meant that their players kept getting picked off. Fortunately, their patience paid off as they managed to use Corey's Graviton Surge and Giannis' Earth Shatter to wipe out the Eternal. They finally captured point A and won Volskaya 3-2. On attack, the Justice pushed through, somehow picking off the players of Paris, even though Ben Best used his Earth Shatter. They reached the end of point A with 6 ultimates, but ended up using all of them to take the point. Towards the end of point B, another early Graviton Surge pushed them to capture it, as neither support ultimates were available for the Eternal. Unfortunately, despite big ultimates from the Justice, the Eternal had an even bigger Earth Shatter. This ended up using a large portion of Washington's time bank. Guido got an opening pick on Ben Best, which gave them time to push through point C. Paris' Graviton Surge self-destruct combo picked off Giannis, who mistimed his shield. The Justice were unable to push through a 5 vs 6 and get held on point C. On defense, the Eternal's ability to push through and pick off members of the Justice meant that they put up no fight until point B. Paris got to push through the choke on C for free, but an opening pick with Sansam's self-destruct onto Shadowburn gave them the positioning to hold just before the end. In the next fight, Corey held with Graviton Surge. It looked winnable because Sansam ate the Graviton Surge, but they got pushed off the point and the Eternal won the map 3-2, taking the match 2 maps to the Justice's 1. With both teams vying for a playoff spot, this match was among the highest stakes yet in Stage 1. Both teams started on Sanctum with a 3-3 team comp, and Profit was picked off mere moments into the initial push. The next team fight was an ultimate fiesta, with both teams taking extremely aggressive positioning, rushing into each other's backlines. This playstyle is where Seoul thrives. Seoul ended the map 100-0 without a single death. London got an early pick onto Jesse to help them take first control of Village. They only had control briefly, however, as Seoul piggybacked off a well-placed self-destruct from Michelle to take the point back. Thankfully, London was ready to rebound. The Spitfire repeatedly dismantled the Seoul support line in back-to-back fights to tie up the map. Profit was picked off again early on Sanctum, giving Seoul the first point capture. While London took the point on their next push, they couldn't keep it for long. Repeated aggressive engagements from the Dynasty allowed a swift point retake and a strong defense that London couldn't dent. Seoul takes Nepal 2-1. London started their defense as aggressively as they began on Nepal, but showed much more promise. They drained half of Seoul's time bank with swift picks, rushing into the Dynasty to set the engagement's quick pace. London couldn't keep up the aggression beyond point A, however, as Seoul's fast-paced play overpowered the Spitfire in the end, and they completed the map in overtime. London's Point A offensive was one drawn-out team fight. A long wraparound into the cafe helped London build up the necessary ultimates to brute force their way to a point capture. Their Point B pushes struggled amidst the consistent pressure that Fisher placed onto Gesture. While the Spitfire were able to take Point B, they failed to complete the map, losing Hollywood 3-2. London looked completely unprepared for Seoul's 4 DPS offense on Anubis, letting Seoul take Point A in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, London prevented a full snowball, stabilizing on Point B after giving up 2 ticks. Seoul then swapped to Goats, which the Spitfire seemed much more capable at countering. They whittled down the entirety of the Dynasty's 6-minute time bank before giving up the point in overtime. London ran a more standard offense than Seoul, mirroring the defense's 3-3. Fury was instrumental in executing a pincer in their opening push, putting pressure on the Dynasty from all angles. While kills were traded back and forth, the Spitfire ultimately came out on top, finishing Point A even faster than Seoul did. Like Seoul, the Spitfire couldn't snowball at Point B, but they did manage to finish the map with time in the bank. With 2 minutes to take 1 tick, the pressure was on London to keep their name in the running for a playoff spot by taking this map and pulling off a reverse sweep. They tried time and again to repeat their pincer formation from the previous round, but Seoul was wise to their games. After 3 unsuccessful pushes, London ran out of time. They tied the map 2-2 and lost their last opportunity to claim a playoff spot. The Spitfire came out swinging against the Dynasty on Route 66, winning a surprisingly reckless first push that caught the Dynasty by surprise. Although they were briefly stalled at Big Earls, London had a surprisingly effective Point B take, with Gesture playing a more passive playstyle. They had a similarly strong Point C push, making it to within 5 meters of completing the map before being forced off the payload. On defense, London never quite hit their stride. A unique first push from Seoul briefly saw Michelle on Symmetra to teleport his team to high ground behind the London defense before he swapped to Sombra. This unique positioning caught London by surprise, and they lost the first fight as a result. From there, London continued to falter. While they had brief moments of stability right after checkpoints were captured, they could not keep up their defense on subsequent pushes. Seoul plowed through Point C to take the map 3-2. This game was important for both teams going forward. With playoffs on the line, this match went exactly as everyone expected. The game started quickly, with much anticipation from the crowd. Unfortunately, the Uprising struggled to find their stride. The Fuel, who have consistently looked strong, managed a near full hold. In a quick moment, Note managed a sneaky backcap during a team fight away from the Lighthouse. However, the Fuel were quick to retaliate. In the end, the Fuel managed to hold them, winning the first round. Moving to the well, the Uprising managed to collect point percentage first. The Fuel fought back with a good play onto fusions that sent him down the hole. Quickly, the Uprising were poised to take the point back, and from there they held it tight. Especially good plays from Note and Aim God allowed the Uprising to hold strong and to keep themselves in the fight. They closed the round with a win. Taking it one more time to the ruins, Boston stormed the point ready to get a map win. Though they did win the first handful of team fights, the Fuel had a trick up their sleeve. With RCK on Sombra, the Uprising's weakness, the Fuel managed to work around some big EMPs. By also focusing fusions, Dallas had an easy time cleaning up the rest of the team. Regardless of one more last-minute flip from Boston, the Fuel decided Ilios was to be theirs. Boston lost the map 1-2. With Boston on attack first, things seemed dim very quickly. Though they were able to get a first tick with ease, the team fights that followed swayed entirely towards the Fuel. A clutch transcendence from Aim God allowed Boston to storm the point in overtime. Despite a last-minute EMP from RCK, the Uprising managed to win the fight and earn themselves the first point of the map. From there, the second point came with ease. With minimal time to push the payload, the Uprising made the most of what they had. The third point was difficult to obtain, with the Fuel consistently grouping the team together for a total wipe. An amazingly timed sound barrier from Kellex kept the team up and pushed them forward. In overtime, they were unable to complete it fully. However, with the payload just shy of completion, the Fuel had a long way to go to win the map. With the Fuel on attack, the Uprising managed to hold them back, but only momentarily. After 2 minutes of defending the main point, the Uprising lost to RCK's Sombra. The second push handed them much of the same. The third push seemed to seal the deal when Color Hex stepped up. Switching to a quick Widowmaker, he popped off, killing 2 people before returning to Zarya duty. Sadly, the Fuel had more ultimate advantage going into the next fight. They finished the map pulling ahead. The Uprising lost the map 2-3. Down at the half, Boston had something to prove. Going into a map that's notoriously theirs to win, they proved the point once again. Quickly, the first point was captured with exceptional kills from Aim God to secure it. Note also worked hard to ensure Sombra was out of the fight before things could escalate. The second point came with ease as well. By stacking support ultimates, they managed to avoid RCK's EMP. Note, getting the final kill allowed them to finish their capture. With just under 6 minutes in their time bank, the Uprising put themselves in a great position for a comeback. Dallas had a slow start to their attack. With Boston on the high ground, they had nothing to contest. However, OGE went in for the dive, sacrificing himself for his team's success. The second point seemed touchable for a snowball. However, Boston pulled out another surprise DPS. With Note switching to Tracer, he managed to get 3 kills, pushing Dallas off the point. Burning off nearly 2.5 minutes, the Uprising stalled the Fuel out. Though they did get their second point capture, they had less time, putting Boston at advantage. The second time around, Dallas attacked first. Off the heels of some powerful plays from RCK, the Fuel took another first point. With less time to capture the second, however, it only took 2 successful team fights from the Uprising to keep them at bay. With a near 5-minute time bank, the Uprising had to get 1 point and 1 tick. It seemed hard at first, with OGE proving to be a formidable force of nature. However, Fusions finally got his chance to shine. With a shatter that caught the Fuel off guard, the Uprising managed to clean up the Fuel with ease. Despite some player losses, they were able to group up in time for a quick attack on the second point. With a better ultimate advantage, a bomb from Note led the way. Color Hex and Fusion were quick to clean them up, earning them the percentage that they needed. Boston won the map 4-3. With a chance to stay in the series, Boston took to the point immediately. The first capture seemed easier than it should have been, despite a good hold from the Fuel at the very end. Well-timed support ultimates let Note use his bomb, and easily, he cleaned up the team. The second point was harder than the first. With continuous plays from RCK that separated the team, the Uprising seemed a little scattered. Unable to really step up the Sombra play, it seemed like the Fuel was ready to shut them down. However, Note had a different story. By pushing them back and holding strong on the payload, they gained a second point capture. From there, Fusions decided it was his time to shine. A 4-man shatter allowed them to push the cart in overtime to completion, giving them a good chance of staying in the fight. With the last map and the playoffs in their sights, Boston was prepared to full hold the Fuel at their door. With continuous efforts, specifically from Aim God, to constantly keep his team up, the Uprising fended their attacks off time after time. Color Hex managed to get some important picks as well, and together they stopped the Fuel just shy of the first point. The Uprising won the map 3-0. In true important fashion, the Uprising refused to go down without a fight. The first round of Map 5 had Boston in a comfortable position to take down the first point. They held strong, keeping to their corners and making sure the Fuel didn't get to take advantage of anyone out of position. With Sombra removed from the equation as well, Fusions got to display his strength as a main tank. Despite one flip, the Uprising held strong, taking the first round. Round 2 had both teams opt for a Winston instead of a Reinhardt, putting OGE in a better position to succeed. Though Boston fought strongly for half of the match, the Fuel weren't giving up so easily. They jumped, ensuring that the Uprising were scattered. Some last-minute changes from the Uprising, including Blasé on Wrecking Ball and Aim God on Soldier, hurt more than helped. The Fuel held strong, winning the second round in Nepal. In one last stand for a place in the playoffs, the Uprising and the Fuel clashed again. With RCK back on Sombra, things seemed unsure for Boston. However, they took the point first, holding strong for nearly half of the needed capture. A well-placed EMP caused Boston to fall, letting Dallas take the point and hold strong. Going forward, Note made sure he had RCK's location on lockdown. An amazing fight with Color Hex and Blasé earning double kills let Boston retake what was theirs. With one last push, the Fuel failed to clap back. falling short once more. Boston won the map 2-1. With nothing to lose in the playoff race, the Hunters were unafraid to play some of the craziest comps the league has seen. The Chengdu Hunters opened strong with a decisive victory on Nepal Village. The Atlanta Reign couldn't quite cope with the Hunters' unconventional defense and lost the first round. Nepal Sanctuary played out in a very similar way. Although the Reign tried out some different team comps, they never really gained the upper hand over Chengdu. This team synergy allowed the Hunters to win Nepal 2-0. The Hunters began their attack on Numbani with a strong team fight and first point capture. On point B, however, the Reign managed to stall for a significant amount of time. Chengdu did eventually capture point B, but they had little time left to capture point C. The Hunters decided to switch to the classic 3-3 comp for point C. On the last fight, the Hunters finally had enough ultimates to push forward confidently. With one strong coordinated attack, Chengdu finished their attack in overtime. The Hunters started their defense running a 3-3 comp. Their hold worked really well for the first 2 points, but fell apart on point C. The Reign managed to complete their attack with extra time on the clock. The Hunters couldn't get any traction on their second attack, putting them in a poor position on defense. While they held their ground valiantly, they eventually fell to the Atlanta Reign with a final score of 4-3. Bacon Jack swapping in for Late Young, the Hunters shook up their comp once again. This time they ran a Widowmaker, Torbjorn, Orisa, and Farah. Despite this comp sounding absolutely insane, the Hunters made it work. Atlanta couldn't adapt and didn't even secure a single tick on their attack. Atlanta attempted to respond to the madness with Bastion. However, they were unprepared for the Hunters' own special hero blend. With Tracer, Genji, and Sombra alongside Ameng's Wrecking Ball, Chengdu chose to divide and conquer. They picked apart the Reign and won Horizon 1-0. For Rialto, the Hunters broke out their signature comp, Wrecking Ball, Farah, and Sombra. They captured points A and B easily, but got held just short of point C. Once Atlanta stabilized, the Hunters switched to 3-3. Unfortunately, they couldn't push any further and stopped just short of point C. The Atlanta Reign suddenly came alive on their attack. The Hunters tried their best to stop them with a 3-3 comp, but couldn't quite hold long enough. The Reign won the map 3-2. The Hunters opened Busan with a Wrecking Ball 3-3. They lost their first team fight, prompting them to switch to a Reinhardt 3-3. Immediately after, they secured the point and quickly took the lead. From there, they held the point until they won the round. The Hunters continued to play 3-3 into the second round. Thanks to Ameng's Reinhardt, Elsa's Diva, and Late Young Zarya, they stayed ahead of the Reign every step. The Chengdu Hunters won the map 2-0, securing the series victory. Thanks for watching. Come back to the Game House for all your sports and esports news and analysis. And make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another video. From our house to yours.